Was Tesla merely an inventor, or was he the first to open a door to another dimension, leaving behind a dangerous legacy?
Shadow Archive.
The sky over Long Island cracked with lightning the night Nikola Tesla disappeared. Wardenclyffe Tower loomed like a skeletal monolith, its copper dome faintly glowing in the darkness. The air shimmered with static, an unnatural pulse radiating through the surrounding pine forest. Locals in Shoreham whispered of strange lights and a low-frequency hum that hadn't stopped for 3 days. Inside the lab, Tesla stood alone beneath the tower's heart. His assistants had long since fled, driven away by paranoia or unpaid wages. Only the machines remained, humming, spinning, calculating. He scribbled frantic notes across a leather-bound ledger, each line etched with the urgency of a man haunted by time. He was chasing something far beyond wireless power. For months, Tesla had spoken of energy transmission, yes, but also of messages, whispers he received in code from beyond the veil of known science. He believed the tower could pierce time itself, not just space. He claimed he'd found a frequency that could open a window, though even he couldn't say to where. On the third night of continuous testing, Tesla vanished. The power to Wardenclyffe died at midnight. The humming stopped. When police arrived the next morning, the laboratory was still warm, but empty. Notes were missing, his bed untouched. No signs of violence, only a faint scorch mark on the tower floor and a ticking metronome, swinging against a current no one could feel. For 40 years, the mystery lingered in obscurity, buried beneath classified files and fading headlines. Until 1943. The war had come home. Brooklyn Navy Yard churned with labor. U-boats hunted supply ships off the East Coast. And deep inside a nondescript lab near Columbia University, Dr. Benjamin Kessler held in his hands something that shouldn't exist: Tesla's missing journal. It had arrived without sender, wrapped in oilskin and sealed with wax. Inside were formulas, diagrams, and cryptic notations. But one entry stood out, dated 3 days before Tesla's disappearance. They are listening. The window opens only when 2 points converge. Space is not the barrier. Time is. Wardenclyffe is only one key. The other lies in Philadelphia. Kessler blinked. Philadelphia? The words chilled him. Just weeks earlier, his superior had mentioned something peculiar. A military test scheduled at the Navy Yard in Philadelphia, involving electromagnetic fields and the USS Eldridge, a new destroyer escort. Supposedly, they were working on radar invisibility. But Kessler had seen too much to believe that was the full story. Tesla's journal described something else entirely. Not invisibility, displacement, experiments in creating field oscillations strong enough to shift matter through time. He remembered the phrase Tesla had used repeatedly: phase decoupling. If true, the implications were staggering. Then the phone rang. A voice, calm and clipped. "Dr. Kessler, you're to report to Project Rainbow immediately. Bring the journal. Do not copy it. Do not speak of it." Click. No explanation. No hesitation. Kessler packed the journal into a briefcase and boarded the midnight train to Philadelphia, unaware that he was stepping into the echo of a forgotten paradox. One that would blur the lines between science and madness, invention and weapon, present and future. And far beneath the ruins of Wardenclyffe, something had begun ticking again. The Philadelphia Navy Yard reeked of salt and smoke, its harbors buzzing with wartime urgency. Dr. Benjamin Kessler stepped off the platform, the worn leather briefcase clenched tightly in his gloved hand. 2 naval officers flanked him before he could speak. No introductions, no questions. He was led past docked cruisers and blinking spotlights into a nondescript concrete bunker marked simply, Research 17C. Inside, the air was cold and dry. Military scientists in white coats buzzed around switchboards, vacuum tubes, and oscilloscopes. At the center of the room stood a scale model of the USS Eldridge, mounted on a steel platform surrounded by Tesla coils. "Dr. Kessler," a sharp voice called. "Commander Richards, I run this operation. You're here because of that." He pointed at the briefcase. "Let's see it." Kessler hesitated. "Do you know what's in here?" "No," Richards said flatly. "But we know who it belonged to. And we know we've replicated some of his work, without understanding a damn bit of it." Kessler opened the case and laid the journal on a steel table. Pages fluttered open, revealing Tesla's looping script and esoteric symbols. Richards leaned in. His face paled. This line, he muttered, pointing. Temporal phase alignment must match harmonic divergence at origin and destination coordinates. What the hell does that mean? It means, Kessler said slowly, if you're trying to move something, or someone, through time, both ends must vibrate at precisely synchronized frequencies. If not, the subject won't move cleanly. Cleanly? They could fragment, or worse, they might never reappear. Richards was silent. He turned and waved Kessler into a side room. There, on a blackboard, were the schematics for what they called Project Rainbow. It wasn't just radar cloaking. They had attempted a full-scale phase test on the Eldridge using Tesla's power field amplification techniques. The coils had surged beyond expected limits. For precisely 4 minutes, the ship vanished, not from sight, but from existence. And when it returned, 2 sailors were missing. Another had been embedded in the bulkhead. The rest suffered seizures and psychotic breaks. Richards pulled a cloth from a side table, revealing a small box, a pocket watch fused to a metal cube, its hands ticking backward. It was found on the Eldridge after the test. Look closely, he said. Kessler picked it up, his breath caught. On the back of the watch, scratched in Tesla's unmistakable handwriting, was a date. January 7, 1943, the day before the experiment. And a word, echo. What does it mean? Richards asked. Kessler's mind raced. He flipped through the journal again, landing on a series of calculations labeled echo effect. Tesla described it as a temporal residue, a signal bleeding from future events back into the present. In theory, it allowed not just movement through time, but observation. Tesla hadn't vanished. He had slipped between echoes, a liminal state between moments. The journal hinted he may have been watching the Eldridge test before it happened. Richards gestured him closer. We're running another test in 72 hours. This time, with a modified field harmonizer. Based on that, he nodded at the journal. You're going to oversee it. Kessler's chest tightened. And if it works? Richards' answer came with a half smile. Then we'll have the greatest weapon of the war. Maybe of any war. That night, Kessler stayed in a secured room at the Navy Yard. He couldn't sleep. Tesla's words haunted him. The window opens only when 2 points converge. Wardenclyffe and the Eldridge. 2 ends of the same echo. He pulled the journal closer and noticed something he hadn't before, a page sealed with glue along its edges. Carefully, he peeled it back. Inside was a folded sheet, brittle with age. A diagram of the Eldridge. But beneath it, a single handwritten note. If they breach the threshold, the sea will burn, and time will fold back on itself. Do not let them open the gate. The echo is not alone. For 2 days, Dr. Kessler worked without rest, cross-referencing Tesla's journal with the Navy's schematics. The modified harmonizer was assembled in secret beneath a hangar by the dry dock, connected to a network of field generators spread across the hull of the USS Eldridge. Tesla's designs called for perfect temporal symmetry, field pulses matched to specific harmonic intervals. What disturbed Kessler wasn't the complexity, but the precision. Even a microsecond of deviation, Tesla warned, could cause the field to fragment. On the night before the test, Kessler stood alone beneath the Eldridge's massive shadow. A fog rolled across the harbor, quiet and unnatural, muffling the sounds of cranes and seagulls. The ship's lights flickered, though it hadn't yet been connected to shore power. A static charge filled the air. Then, a voice behind him. You shouldn't be here. Kessler turned. A man stepped out of the mist. Tall, thin, dressed in a long brown coat far too antiquated for wartime. His face, gaunt, sharp, eyes piercing with eerie familiarity. Kessler's heart jumped. Tesla? The man said nothing. He reached into his coat and handed Kessler a small device, a brass dial mounted on a curved plate of polished obsidian. It hummed faintly, resonating like a struck tuning fork. This must be activated, Tesla finally said, at the moment of resonance. Not before, not after. It will anchor you. Anchor me to what? Tesla didn't answer. He turned, vanishing into the fog as silently as he'd appeared. Kessler stood stunned, fingers wrapped around the strange device. It pulsed faintly, synchronizing with something unseen, or yet to be seen. The following morning, final preparations began. At precisely 1,100 hours, the Eldridge's generators surged to life. The field harmonizer thrummed with energy, Tesla coils snapping like electric whips. The deck glowed faint green, enveloped in a translucent dome of static. Richards stood in the control booth above the dock, watching the readings. Initiate phase sequence, he ordered. Kessler, stationed near the auxiliary field monitor, gripped the brass device tightly. Tesla's journal had been clear. The moment the field stabilizes, reality will shift. The observer must be fixed to remain whole. Inside the control room, dials spiked. Resonance lock achieved, one of the technicians called out. Kessler flicked the brass switch. The world collapsed inward. A single pulse of sound, not heard, but felt, rang through the harbor like a cosmic bell. The Eldridge vanished. Not just disappeared, evaporated from linear time. And Kessler went with it. The sensation was indescribable. Time peeled away in layers. He saw moments, flashes, spinning around him. A desert, a ruined city, a crowd of people walking backward. Fireflies frozen mid-flight, then darkness. Silence. And suddenly, the sea was gone. He stood in a room of impossible geometry. Angles folding where there should be corners, colors that didn't belong to any spectrum. Machines pulsed around him, shaped like no human invention. And across from him, in the center of the chamber, was Tesla, younger, clearer, eyes wide not with madness, but revelation. You brought the key, Tesla said, pointing at the device in Kessler's hand. Good. What is this place? Tesla motioned upward. Not where, when. Kessler turned. Above them hung the USS Eldridge, suspended in a translucent sphere of vibrating time. Men on deck screamed, frozen mid-motion, caught in an echo loop. They ran the experiment, Tesla said, and tore open the fold. It's not just a gate anymore. It's a corridor, to everything. Kessler staggered. We have to shut it down. Tesla's face turned grave. We can't, not from here. He stepped closer, whispering, there's something else in the corridor. Something watching. And in the flicker of broken time, Kessler saw it. A shadow with too many limbs. It moved between moments like smoke in reverse. It was coming. The entity had no form, only implication, as if space itself recoiled from it. It flickered between planes, slipping in and out of time like a skipped heartbeat. Kessler couldn't look directly at it. Wherever his gaze landed, the thing wasn't, and yet somehow, always was. Tesla dragged him into the corridor's outer edge, into a safer, phase pocket, carved by harmonic shielding. It came through the breach, he said tightly. Not during the Eldridge test, but before. The moment I activated Wardenclyffe in 1901. Kessler's mind reeled. It's been here, since then? Waiting. Feeding on echoes. The harmonic stabilizer in Kessler's hand buzzed louder, warning of temporal destabilization. Around them, the frozen image of the Eldridge began to bend. Its hull shimmered, stretching across decades, each rivet flickering like a dying star. Tesla gestured toward a narrow bridge of synchronized time particles, a path leading to a second chamber filled with machines unlike anything Kessler had ever seen. Floating gyroscopic rings, plasma conduits coiled in helix spirals, and, at its center, a crystalline sphere humming in tones too low for human ears. The core, Tesla said. A prototype, my last invention. It can reseal the fold, if properly activated. Why didn't you use it? I couldn't, not alone. Tesla looked at him. You're the other end of the equation. I was always waiting for you. Before Kessler could respond, a crack rippled through the corridor. Not a sound, but a break in presence. The entity surged closer. Now it had form, not of flesh, but geometry. Shifting angles, spirals that twisted against the laws of physics, a being born of entropy. Time began to buckle. Fragments from other eras leaked into the corridor. A 13th century night galloping midair, a shattered satellite spinning through ghost gravity, a child clutching a gas mask, floating. Tesla moved fast, inserting the harmonic stabilizer into the crystalline sphere. We have seconds, he said. But the entity struck first. A wave of collapsing frequency roared across the corridor, blasting into the machinery. Tesla staggered, bleeding from his ears. Kessler grabbed the core, feeling it pull at his entire body, not physically but temporally. It was drawing his presence through time, anchoring him in all moments at once. The machinery ignited. Tesla collapsed, eyes locking with Kessler's. You have to finish it, he gasped. Go forward, past the breach, close it from the other side. How? Become the echo. The sphere exploded in light. Kessler screamed as he was torn from linearity. He tumbled through time, not just moving forward, but being rewritten. Centuries bled past him, wars, peace, crumbling empires, glowing towers on distant horizons. Then darkness. And finally, silence. He awoke in a sterile chamber, face down on cold tile. The air smelled synthetic, humming with electricity. A voice called out in a dialect he didn't recognize, though the words were English. Subject Echo has arrived. Kessler lifted his head. He was in a facility. Massive, circular, lined with glass walls. Beyond them, towering spires reached into a red sky. A man in a white uniform approached, scanning Kessler with a handheld device. Welcome to Chrono Facility Theta 9. Year, 2134. The man tapped a console. The breach is still active. But we've been waiting. We know what you are. Kessler blinked. What am I? The technician didn't answer directly. He handed Kessler a black data slate. On it, a video flickered to life. Tesla's face, older, tired, recorded from an earlier time. If you're seeing this, the recording said, then it means the Echo survived. You've passed through. You are the fulcrum. You can end it. The screen faded to black. Then the floor beneath Kessler's feet began to hum. Time, once more, was unraveling. Kessler stood at the edge of a future that should never have existed. The walls of Chrono Facility Theta 9 trembled as alarms pulsed red. Holographic schematics of the temporal breach flickered across the glass, each frame showing a widening spiral, a black hole of displaced moments spiraling into collapse. The technician barked orders. Stabilizers at 62%. We're losing chronological coherence. Another tremor. Outside, the towers of the distant skyline began flickering like faulty projections. One moment pristine, the next collapsed in rubble. Kessler realized with horror. The breach wasn't contained to time, it was consuming reality itself. A woman approached. Mid-40s, sharp-eyed, wearing a badge that read Director Alana Mernick. Dr. Kessler, she said with surprising calm. We've studied you for over a century. Tesla's files, the Eldridge incident, the fragment you carried, it's all led here. Kessler steadied himself. Then you know what's on the other side. Mernick nodded. Yes, and we know it can't be destroyed from this end. She led him down a corridor lined with cryopods. Inside each, men and women frozen in time. Test subjects, Mernick said. We tried to replicate Tesla's stabilizer, but the human mind can't survive the corridor without echo imprinting. You're the only one who's been through and retained identity. You're the key. They reached a chamber more advanced than anything Kessler had imagined. Rings of anti-gravity plasma rotating in synchronized orbit around a black, reflective sphere. The reversion gate. You'll pass back through the corridor, Mernick said, but not just back, sideways. To an inflection point, a moment where causality was corrupted. The original breach must be sealed at its root. And if I fail? She didn't answer. Technicians fitted Kessler with a new stabilizer, sleeker, integrated into a polymer harness along his spine. As he stepped onto the gate's platform, Tesla's voice echoed in his mind. The Echo is not alone. The machine powered on, reality inverted. He fell again, faster, deeper, through threads of unrealized timelines. Alternate histories brushed against him. A world where Tesla became a military dictator, a world where time fractured entirely and civilization lived in isolated centuries. And one, terrifying possibility, a world where the entity ruled all moments, unopposed. Then, impact. He landed hard on iron scaffolding. Pain flared. The air smelled of oil, ozone, and sea salt. Above him loomed Wardenclyffe Tower, whole again, humming. Kessler realized the truth. They had sent him not just to a place or year, but to the precise moment Tesla activated the first gate. 1901. And then he saw Tesla. Not the spectral version from the corridor, but the real man, younger, energized, standing at the tower's core, his hand hovering above a brass switch. Kessler lunged. Tesla turned in shock. You, again? No time. Kessler shouted. You can't activate it. You opened the breach. Tesla hesitated, torn between genius and fear. But the harmonic convergence creates the corridor. The echo, the entity, it all starts here. You let it in. The tower pulsed. The harmonic sequence was already primed. Then help me stop it, Tesla cried. Kessler pulled the stabilizer's core from his harness, fusing it into the tower's control panel. "We don't collapse the field," he said. "We invert it, seal the fold by closing the harmonic echo in reverse." Tesla's eyes widened in understanding. They moved in sync, realigning the coils, reversing current, feeding the stabilizer's imprint across the sequence. Then Tesla threw the switch. The tower screamed. A shockwave of pure silence radiated outward, not noise, but the absence of time. The sky cracked. The entity surged into view, clawing at the breach, desperate. Then the stabilizer pulsed. Reality folded inward, not in collapse, but in correction. The breach snapped shut. Time healed. Kessler awoke in a white room. Modern, calm. A screen blinked overhead. Date: August 18, 2025. Location: Wardenclyffe Historical Research Center. A nurse entered. "You've been asleep for 2 days," she said. "You were found near the tower ruins. No ID, just this." She handed him Tesla's journal, burnt around the edges, but intact. Kessler sat up, heart pounding. Outside, the tower was gone. The sky was clear. No more tremors, no more flickers. The world was whole. A future without the breach. But as he opened the journal one last time, he found a new entry in Tesla's hand, dated today. "The echo has sealed the gate. But time is not a line. It is a spiral, and spirals return." Kessler could not shake the feeling that something remained unfinished. Though the breach had closed, and the world around him appeared normal, even idyllic, time had not returned to its prior stillness. There were disturbances, subtle, yes, but unmistakable to a man who had once been unanchored from the flow of causality. It began with the clocks. Every timepiece he encountered ran a fraction of a second fast. Not enough to draw attention, but enough for Kessler, who had been bound to Tesla's resonance fields, to feel the drag. Time was accelerating, imperceptibly, incrementally. Then came the dreams. He saw Wardenclyffe rebuilt, not as a tower, but as a spire of glass and copper, rising from a city that did not exist. Tesla was there, or something like him, watching from a high window, hands behind his back. In the dream, the spire emitted no light, only shadow. Kessler awoke one morning with his palms bleeding, geometric imprints seared into his skin, identical to the stabilizer glyphs from the future. Something had followed him back. Not the entity. A fragment. He returned to the Wardenclyffe site under the cover of night, guided by instinct and unease. The land had been preserved, a monument to scientific ambition. But beneath it, in the old foundations, Kessler found remnants no archaeologist had recorded. Crystalline chips from the reversion gate, buried deep in the soil, still humming. The harmonic resonance hadn't ceased. It had gone underground. He examined the chips under microscope and found microstructures shifting of their own accord, adapting. Growing. Time wasn't accelerating naturally, it was being driven forward. He dug deeper into Tesla's journal, now strangely complete, with new pages filled in a hand that was not quite Tesla's. It contained diagrams of a spiral construct labeled the orrery of time, alongside warnings. Do not let the echo reach critical mass. It will draw the next gate open. The breach was not an opening. It was a signal. Kessler's breath caught. Had the original breach functioned not as an accident, but as a beacon? He needed answers. In Washington, he searched declassified archives. Beneath layers of redacted ink and missing pages, he found Project Thales, a 1982 initiative connected to the remains of the USS Eldridge. It detailed electromagnetic fields reappearing around naval facilities in the Pacific. One name recurred: Ascension Island. A final note in the file chilled him. Subject echo confirmed active. Chrono signature matches pre-breach sequence. Temporal anchor points aligning near South Atlantic anomaly. Phase synchronization expected within 43 years. 43 years from 1982. The year was now 2025. The countdown was ending. The spiral was returning. Ascension Island was not marked on most maps, but the coordinates were precise. Kessler boarded a private charter under the guise of scientific observation, carrying nothing but Tesla's journal, the stabilizer core, and a bag of instruments he had modified from old schematics. As the plane crossed into the South Atlantic anomaly, a region known for magnetic disturbances, the sky shimmered with strange auroras. When he landed, the island greeted him with oppressive heat and silence. No birds, no wind, the air itself felt suspended, as if held in anticipation. The base was abandoned. Buildings lay in disuse, stripped of equipment, yet faintly humming. Kessler followed the readings on his handheld stabilizer. They spiked every 33 seconds, in sync with an invisible frequency, centered beneath a basalt cliff on the island's western edge. There, in a cave carved by lava and time, he found the source. A chamber. Circular. Lined with 6 pillars made of the same crystalline alloy he had seen in 2134. At its center stood a machine, a perfect sphere suspended above the floor, rotating slowly on no axis, encased in a frame of metal too smooth for human forging. Tesla's journal described it without naming it, the orrery of time. Not made by human hands. Planted. Around its base, etched in gold, was a phrase in the same script that had appeared in Kessler's scars. Return completes the loop. The final echo is choice. As he stepped forward, the stabilizer pulsed violently. Time around the orrery bent like heat over desert sand. Images danced across its surface. Moments not yet lived. Firestorms over cities, oceans receding into void, a future not of invention, but devouring resonance. Then, a figure stepped from the shadows. Older, gaunt, familiar. Himself. The other Kessler, a version that had never closed the breach. That had let Tesla activate the tower without interference. That had followed a different spiral. You came back, the older Kessler said. What is this? He demanded. The signal worked. They heard it. The orrery is a response. From who? The older version shook his head. Not who, when. They exist outside sequence. They seeded this to test us. The corridor was a question. The entity was only the first answer. And this? Kessler motioned to the orrery. A choice. What kind? The older Kessler stepped aside. You can activate it, open the next gate, join them, see all of time, command it. But you won't return, or... He handed Kessler a second stabilizer, identical to the one Tesla gave him, but scarred. Used. You can shut it forever. Collapse the corridor, let time resume its natural course. But the price is final. All memory of what happened, of Tesla, the breach, your own journey, will vanish. Kessler stared at the orrery. Power beyond comprehension, or peace without memory. Behind him, the air vibrated. The resonance neared its apex. Tesla's final words echoed once more. You are the fulcrum. You can end it. He stepped forward. Made his choice. Touched the orrery. And light swallowed the island.